Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Deku was the son of All Might and had a body enhancement quirk. Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The heat was the first thing. It always was. It didn't start in the skin or the blood, it started in the marrow. A low, thrumming vibration that felt less like biological function and more like the idling of a high-performance engine. Izuku Midoriya lay in his bed, staring at the ceiling of his room, counting the rhythmic thumps of his own heart. Ba-thump. Ba-thump. 45 beats per minute. Resting heart rate of an elite athlete. He closed his eyes and pushed a mental trigger, a subconscious flex he had mastered by the age of 5. Immediately, the sensation shifted. The thrumming turned into a roar. The heat spiked, radiating outward from his bones, flooding his muscle fibers with bioelectric energy. The air in the bedroom seemed to warp slightly, the smell of ozone prickling his nose. Green sparks danced across his skin, illuminating the All Might posters that plastered his walls, relics of a childhood hero worship that had complicated into something far darker, far heavier. Izuku sat up, the sheets sliding off a torso that was too defined for a 14-year-old boy. He clenched his fist. The air popped, a small vacuum collapsing under the sheer pressure of his grip. Overdrive, he whispered to the empty room. It was a good name. Simple. Accurate. His quirk allowed him to bioelectrically stimulate his nervous system, reinforcing his skeletal structure and pushing his muscular output beyond the natural human limit. It made him fast. It made him durable. It made him strong enough to punch through concrete as if it were wet drywall, but engines overheated. That was the catch. That was always the catch. He exhaled, willing the power down. The green sparks faded. The heat dissipated, leaving a sheen of sweat on his forehead. Izuku swung his legs out of bed and walked to the mirror. He looked at his reflection, the unruly mop of green hair, the constellation of freckles. He looked like her. He had Inko Midoriya's eyes, her softness around the edges of his face. But the jawline? The smile that looked a little too sharp when he was angry? The sheer, imposing width of his shoulders? That belonged to the man who wasn't there. Izuku grabbed a towel and wiped his face, his expression hardening. Today was the day the career forms were due. Today was the first step toward UA High. Today, he would take another step toward proving that he didn't need a father to be a king. The kitchen smelled of miso soup and grilled fish. Inko Midoriya was moving with the practiced efficiency of a single mother who had balanced work and parenting for over a decade. She looked up as Izuku entered, her expression softening. Morning, Izuku. Did you sleep well? I heard, humming again. Izuku pulled out a chair, the wood creaking slightly under his grip before he consciously relaxed his hand. Just morning calibration, Mom. Checking the limits. Body temperature is stable. Inko placed a bowl of rice in front of him, her eyes lingering on his bandaged hands. Izuku trained hard, too hard sometimes. She worried. It was her quirk, in a way. She could pull small objects, but her true power was an infinite capacity for worry. You don't have to push so hard every morning, she said softly, sitting opposite him. You're already the top of your class. Your mock exam scores for UA are in the top percentile. It's not about the scores, Mom, Izuku said, picking up his chopsticks. It's about the gap. The gap? Between me and everyone else, Izuku said, his voice calm, lacking arrogance but filled with a terrifying certainty. The world is full of villains, Mom, and heroes who care more about their ranking than saving people. If I'm going to do this, I can't just be good. I have to be undeniable. Inko sighed, a sound that carried the weight of years of silence. She knew where this drive came from. She knew who he was trying to outrun. Izuku, she started, hesitating. You know, he sent a letter. The air in the kitchen instantly grew heavy. The temperature didn't rise physically, but emotionally, the room froze. Izuku stopped eating. He didn't look up from his rice. Did he? He asked about you. He asked if you were applying to UA. He has my number, Izuku said, his voice dropping an octave. If he wanted to know, he could call. He could visit. He could have been here when you were working double shifts. He could have been here when I manifested my quirk and burned a hole through my mattress with a fever of 106 degrees. It's complicated, Izuku. His work in America? Or wherever he is? Izuku looked up finally, his green eyes flashing. I don't want his letters, Mom. And I don't want his money, even though I know you take it because we need it. When I go to UA, when I become a pro, I'm going to pay him back every single yen. I'm going to buy you a house. A real one. And we're going to forget Tashinori Yagi ever existed. Inko reached out, covering his hand with hers. Her hand was small, trembling slightly. He loves you. In his own way. Love is presence, Mom, Izuku said, pulling his hand away gently to finish his meal. Love is showing up. I'm going to show up. For you. For everyone. He stood, grabbing his black school uniform jacket, the gakurin that fit him a little too snugly around the chest. I'm heading out. Don't worry about dinner. I might hit the gym after school. Be careful, Izuku. Always. Aldera Junior High was a typical municipal school, filled with the typical noise of adolescents discovering their quirks and their hormones simultaneously. But when Izuku Midoriya walked down the hallway, the noise changed. It didn't stop. He wasn't a monster, but it shifted. Respect. A little bit of fear. He walked with a straight back, his bag slung over one shoulder. Students parted for him, not because he bullied them, but because he possessed a natural gravity. He was the ace of Aldera, top grades, top athletic performance, a quirk that everyone knew was destined for the big leagues. He slid open the door to Class 3A and walked to his seat. Morning, Midoriya, a classmate said. Morning, Izuku nodded politely, pulling out a notebook. He sat down, and immediately, a pair of legs slammed onto the desk next to him. Katsuki Bakugo. The only person in this school who didn't look at Izuku with awe. He looked at him with a volatile mixture of rivalry and irritation. Nerd, Bakugo grunted. You look pissed today. The old lady give you an earful? Morning to you too, Kaken, Izuku said without looking up, organizing his pencils. And no. Just thinking about the future. The future? Bakugo scoffed, small explosions popping in his palms. You mean my future? I'm the only one here making it to UA, got it? Don't think just because you can lift a truck means you can hang with the big dogs. Izuku finally turned his head. He looked Bakugo in the eye. The dynamic between them was strange. In another life, perhaps Bakugo would have bullied a quirkless Izuku. But here, Izuku had awakened overdrive at age 4, the same week Bakugo got his explosions. They had leveled a playground fighting over a limited edition All Might card. They weren't friends. They were warlords sharing a border. We're both going to UA, Kaken, Izuku said calmly. And we both know who scored higher on the last mock battle trial. Bakugo's eyes narrowed. You got lucky. You tanked a hit you shouldn't have. Durability is a stat, same as firepower, Izuku replied, tapping his temple. You waste too much energy on the wind-up. I told you that. I don't need advice from a half-baked brawler. Bakugo snapped, kicking his desk. The teacher walked in then, slamming a stack of papers on the podium. All right, settle down, you hellions, the teacher shouted. Today's the day. Career aptitude forms. But he picked up the stack and threw them into the air with a dramatic flourish. Who am I kidding? You all want to be heroes, don't you? The class erupted into cheers, everyone activating their quirks. Fingers extended, bodies turned to stone, weak telekinesis floated pencils. Yes, you all have wonderful quirks, the teacher said. But no quirk usage in school. Now, let's see. Looking at the preliminary forms, we have 2 students aiming for the top. UA High School. The class went silent. Heads turned. Midoriya and Bakugo. Bakugo smirked, leaning back. Obviously. The rest of you extras are just stepping stones. I'm gonna surpass All Might and become the richest, strongest hero of all time. Midoriya has perfect grades, the teacher noted. And his physical assessment scores are, well, record-breaking for the prefecture. Whispers broke out. Midoriya is a beast. Yeah, but Bakugo's quirk is flashier. Midoriya's quirk is scary though. Have you seen him bend a steel bar? I heard his dad is some big shot abroad. Izuku ignored the whispers. He stared at his notebook. surpass All Might. That was Bakugo's dream. It was everyone's dream. The symbol of peace cast a shadow so long it covered the entire country. If they knew, Izuku thought bitterly. If they knew the symbol of peace was just a man who ran away from his own son. Don't lump me in with these losers, teach! Bakugo yelled. And don't lump me in with Deku over there, either. Izuku flinched slightly at the nickname. Deku. It used to mean useless. Now Bakugo used it more like wooden puppet, implying Izuku was just a stiff, boring powerhouse with no flair. Relax, Kaken, Izuku said, his voice cutting through the noise. There's plenty of room at the top. UA accepts 36 students in the hero course. I'm sure you can manage one of the spots below me, the class gasped. Bakugo froze. His hands began to smoke. You want to die today, Deku? Izuku smiled, a sharp, confident thing. Focus on the entrance exam. You don't want to peak in middle school. The final bell rang, releasing the students into the afternoon sun. Izuku packed his bag quickly, intending to take the long route home. He needed to clear his head. The conversation about his father that morning had thrown off his rhythm. He felt irritable, his quirk itching beneath his skin. He walked through the winding streets of Muzurifu, notebook in hand. He wasn't just sulking, he was analyzing. He watched a minor hero, Death Arms, lifting a steel beam at a construction site nearby. Inefficient, Izuku noted, scribbling. He's using his back, not his legs. Relying too much on the quirk's passive strength enhancement rather than biomechanics. If he shifted his center of gravity, he turned into an underpass, the shadows cooling the air. A medium-sized invisibility cloak. The voice was wet, gurgling. Izuku stopped. He looked up. From the sewer grate ahead, a massive sludge-like fluid was oozing out, coalescing into a grotesque shape with bulging eyes and a gaping maw. You'll do, the sludge villain hissed. Perfect vessel to hide in. Just hold still, it'll only hurt for about 45 seconds. Izuku didn't scream. He didn't panic. He dropped his bag. Villain. Fluid body type. Physical immunity likely high. Suffocation risk, critical. Get back, Izuku warned, his voice low. Brave kid! The villain laughed, lunging forward with a tendril of slime. Izuku moved. Overdrive 5%. Green lightning crackled around Izuku's calves. He vanished from his standing position, reappearing 3 meters to the right. The sludge tendril smashed into the concrete where he had been standing. Fast. The villain grunted. But no place to run. The sludge expanded, filling the tunnel. It was a tidal wave of muck. Izuku analyzed the situation in a microsecond. I can't punch him. My fists will go right through. I need pressure. Wind pressure. Who said I was running? Izuku planted his feet. He took a deep breath, channeling the heat of his quirk into his right arm. The muscles swelled, tearing through the fabric of his uniform sleeve. The green lightning intensified, illuminating the dark tunnel. Smash! He didn't hit the villain. He hit the air directly in front of him. Boom! The displacement of air was like a cannon shot. The shockwave slammed into the semi-liquid body of the villain, scattering the sludge, blowing a hole right through the center of the mass. The villain shrieked as his eyes were blown backward, but it wasn't enough. The sludge reformed instantly, faster than Izuku anticipated. Regeneration speed is high, Izuku thought, gritting his teeth. I need to vaporize him or scatter him so wide he can't reform. Before he could wind up for a second hit, a secondary tendril whipped out from the shadows, wrapping around Izuku's ankle. Gotcha, you slippery brat! Izuku was yanked off his feet. The sludge surged up, engulfing his legs, then his torso. It was cold and smelled of sewage and death. Izuku struggled, activating overdrive to push his strength, but you couldn't flex your way out of water. The slime forced its way toward his nose and mouth. Can't breathe. Can't breathe. Think. Heat. Use the heat. Izuku closed his eyes. Usually, he vented the heat to keep from hurting himself. Now, he reversed the flow. He internalized the energy friction. Overheat. His skin turned a dangerous shade of red. Steam began to hiss where the sludge touched his neck. The villain yelped. Hot! You're burning me! The sludge loosened, boiling away from Izuku's skin. Izuku clawed his hand free, gasping for air. Get off! He prepared a desperate, full-power strike, risking breaking his own arm to generate enough wind pressure to clear the tunnel. Suddenly, the manhole cover above them exploded. Have no fear! A voice. Deep, booming, familiar in a way that made Izuku's stomach twist even as hope flared in his chest. Why? A massive figure landed in the tunnel, blocking out the light. A figure in a white t-shirt and cargo pants, muscular beyond belief, with blonde hair that defied gravity. Because I am here, the sludge villain shrieked. All Might! Izuku froze, half submerged in the boiling sludge. He looked up. Time seemed to slow. It was him. The number one hero. The absentee father. All Might pulled back a fist. He didn't use overdrive. He used something else. Something ancient. Texas. Smash! It wasn't a punch. It was a natural disaster localized entirely within a fist. The wind pressure didn't just scatter the villain, it atomized the liquid structure. The spiraling vortex of air pressure scraped the tunnel walls clean, sending the sludge raining down like black hail. Izuku was blown back, tumbling across the concrete, but he dug his fingers into the ground, using his enhanced strength to anchor himself. Silence fell over the tunnel. All Might stood tall, steam rising from his body. He reached down and scooped up the unconscious remains of the villain into 2 empty soda bottles he had in his pockets. Safe. All Might declared, striking a pose. Apologies for getting you caught up in my justice ing. I was chasing this fellow from the sewers. Izuku stood up, shaking the slime off his uniform. His heart was pounding. Not from fear anymore. From anger. He looked at the man's back. The man turned. The smile, that iconic billboard smile, faltered for a fraction of a second. All Might looked at Izuku. He saw the green hair. The freckles. The destroyed sleeve of the uniform revealing a muscular arm that was currently steaming with residual heat. Young man, All Might said, his voice hesitating. Are you injured? Izuku stared at him. The resemblance was there, buried under the physical differences. The eyes. The intensity. No, Izuku said, his voice cold. I'm fine. All Might flinched. He checked his watch frantically. I see. Well, I must get this villain to the police. Stay out of trouble. You have a strong quirk. Wait, Izuku stepped forward. No time. Justice awaits. All Might leaped. He didn't just jump. He launched himself into the stratosphere, vanishing into the sky. Izuku stood alone in the damp tunnel. He clenched his fists until his knuckles turned white. He didn't recognize me. Or he pretended not to. Izuku looked down. The force of All Might's jump had cracked the pavement. I'm not letting him go. Izuku activated overdrive. 15%. He sprinted out of the tunnel, his eyes scanning the trajectory. He knew the area. He knew where All Might would land if he was running out of time. He had studied the hero's limits for years. The chase led to the shopping district. But when Izuku arrived, panting, he found chaos. Fires burned. Heroes, Death Arms, Kamui Woods, Empty Lady, stood helpless behind a police barricade. It's the villain! Someone screamed. He got away from All Might. Izuku's blood ran cold. The bottles. He must have dropped them when he jumped. He pushed through the crowd. Let me through! Stay back, kid! Death Arms yelled. It's too dangerous. Izuku ignored him. He looked at the center of the inferno. The sludge villain had reformed, bigger and nastier than before. And he had a hostage. Explosions rocked the street. Kaken. Bakugo was buried waist-deep in the sludge, screaming, firing explosions wildly. But the explosions weren't working. They were just creating smoke and feeding the fire. The villain was suffocating him, trying to take his body. Where is All Might? Someone cried. He was here earlier. Why isn't he helping? Izuku scanned the crowd. He saw him. At the back of the crowd, leaning against a lamppost, was a skeletal, emaciated man clutching his side, coughing blood. His eyes were wide with horror. He was clutching the railing, trying to force himself to transform, but failing. He's at his limit. Izuku looked at All Might. All Might looked at Izuku. In that moment, Izuku saw the truth. The weakness. The frailty of the symbol. Izuku looked back at Bakugo. Bakugo's eyes met his. For the first time, there was no arrogance in red eyes. Just terror. My legs are moving on their own. Izuku broke the police line. Idiot! Stop! Kamui Woods yelled. Izuku didn't stop. He accelerated. The green lightning of overdrive flared to life, brighter than before. Think. The weakness. Eyes. Mouth. Solid parts. Izuku dodged a slime tendril. He leaped over a burning car. You again? The sludge villain roared. I'll kill you this time. Kaken! Izuku yelled. Deku? Bakugo choked out. Izuku reached the villain. He didn't punch blindly this time. He grabbed his school bag and hurled it with enhanced precision. The corner of a hardcover math textbook slammed directly into the villain's exposed eye. Arg! The villain recoiled, the slime loosening around Bakugo's mouth. Izuku slid in, heat radiating from his body. Breathe, Kaken! Why are you here? Bakugo coughed. Because you looked like you needed help. Izuku grabbed the slime. His hands sizzled. Overdrive max output arms. He dug his fingers into the fluid. Let him go. With a roar of effort, Izuku ripped the sludge apart, creating an opening. I'm going to kill you both. The villain recovered, raising a massive wave of sludge to crush them. Izuku stood in front of Bakugo, crossing his arms. He braced himself. He couldn't dodge. He had to tank it, hold it. Reinforce the bones. Don't break. But the impact never came. A hand grabbed Izuku's shoulder. A large hand. I really am pathetic, a voice growled. Izuku looked up. All Might was there. He had forced the transformation. Blood trickled from his mouth, but he was smiling. But this wasn't the media smile. This was a grimace of pure fury. I told you I was done justice ing. But a pro is always ready to risk his life. All Might. Izuku gasped. Detroit. All Might pulled back his fist. Izuku felt the air pressure change. The sheer power was intoxicating, terrifying. Smash! The punch hit the villain, but the updraft changed the weather. The clouds swirled. A tornado descended upon the street. The sludge was obliterated. The fires were snuffed out by the wind pressure. Rain began to fall. The crowd went silent, then erupted. He changed the weather. All Might saved them. Izuku stood in the rain, staring at the massive hero. All Might panted heavily, steam pouring off him. He looked down at Izuku. You! All Might whispered. Then, the hero turned and leaped away, fleeing the media frenzy that was descending like vultures. The police scolded Izuku. The heroes praised Bakugo for his bravery and powerful quirk, while treating Izuku like a reckless child, despite him being the one to create the opening. Izuku didn't care. He took the scolding with a blank face. You're reckless, Death Arms said. You could have died. But I didn't, Izuku said flatly. And you were standing watching. He walked away before the hero could respond. Bakugo caught up to him a block later. Deku! Izuku stopped but didn't turn around. I didn't ask for your help. Bakugo yelled, panting. And I didn't need it. I was fine. Don't think you looked down on me. I don't owe you anything. Izuku turned his head slightly. You're welcome, Kaken. Bakugo grit his teeth, turned, and stomped away. Izuku watched him go, then turned his gaze to the alleyway 3 streets down. He knew. He had seen the steam trail. He walked toward the alley. It was a dead end. There, slumped against a dumpster, was the skeletal man. Tashinori Yagi. He was coughing, wiping blood from his mouth with a handkerchief. He looked frail, like a strong wind would knock him over. His oversized clothes hung off his bony frame. Izuku stood at the entrance of the alley. The sun was setting, casting long shadows. You can stop hiding, Izuku said. The skeleton man jumped, looking up with wide, sunken eyes. Young man! This isn't what it looks like. I am All Might's secretary. Yes. He just left. Izuku walked forward. He didn't look impressed. He looked tired. Cut the crap, Izuku said. He stopped 3 feet from the man. I saw the steam. I saw the eyes. And besides, Izuku reached into his pocket and pulled out his student ID. He flipped it open, revealing the name, Izuku Midoriya. Mom told me you sent a letter. The man froze. The frantic energy drained out of him, leaving only a deep, ancient sadness. Toshinori Yagi slumped further against the dumpster. He looked at the boy, really looked at him, for the first time in 10 years. Izuku. The name hung in the air, heavy and awkward. Hello, Dad, Izuku said, the word tasting like ash in his mouth. You've grown, Toshinori whispered. You're huge. Quirk factor, Izuku said, crossing his arms. Muscle hypertrophy to handle the bioelectricity. You'd know that if you were around. Toshinori winced. I deserve that. I deserve all of that. Why did you leave? Izuku asked. He didn't yell. He wanted to, but the sight of this broken man confused him. This was the symbol of peace. This dying skeleton? Toshinori lifted his shirt. Izuku's eyes widened. The scar took up half his torso. It looked like a crater, a twisted mass of purple and red scar tissue where his respiratory system used to be. 5 years ago, Toshinori said softly. A villain did this to me. Half my respiratory organs were destroyed. My stomach was removed. I've wasted away from the surgeries. Toxic chainsaw? Izuku asked, referencing a fight from the fan forums. No, Toshinori shook his head. Someone far worse. Someone I couldn't let find you. Or Inko. He looked at Izuku with intense blue eyes. I left to protect you. I know it sounds like a cheap excuse. But the man I fought, if he knew I had a family, he would have hunted you down just to hear me scream. I had to cut ties. I had to become just a symbol, and nothing else. Izuku stared at the scar. It was horrific. It made the anger in his chest waver, but it didn't extinguish it. So you chose the world over us, Izuku summarized. I chose a world where you could be safe, Toshinori corrected. Though I failed at the being their part. Silence stretched between them. I saw you today, Toshinori said, shifting the topic. Against the sludge villain. The other heroes stood back. You ran in. My legs moved on their own, Izuku muttered. Exactly, Toshinori said. He struggled to his feet. He was taller than Izuku, but he felt smaller. That is the quality of a true hero. There are many stories about top heroes, Izuku, but they all have one thing in common. Their bodies moved before they could think. Izuku looked at his father. You have a powerful quirk, Toshinori continued. But today, you didn't win because of your quirk. You won because of your spirit. You have the heart that I was afraid you wouldn't have without me. Toshinori took a step forward. I have a secret, Izuku. A secret about my power. And seeing you today, seeing you jump into the fire when no one else would, it made me realize something. What secret? Izuku asked, his guard still up. Toshinori spread his arms. My quirk. One for all, it can be passed down. It is a torch, passed from bearer to bearer. And I am running out of time. Izuku's mind raced. Passed down? A quirk like that? I have been looking for a successor, Toshinori said, his voice trembling with emotion. Someone worthy of inheriting this power. Someone who can stand as the pillar of peace when I am gone. He looked at Izuku. Not as a father looking at a son, but as a master looking at a student. Izuku Midoriya. You have the heart. You have the body. And God knows, you have the stubbornness. Toshinori extended a hand. I want you to inherit my power. I want you to take one for all. Izuku stared at the hand. The hand of the number one hero. The hand of the father who left. The hand offering him the greatest power in the world. The wind blew through the alley, carrying the smell of rain and ozone. Izuku looked at his own hand. He clenched it, green sparks of overdrive flickering across his knuckles. You want me to take your power? Izuku asked quietly. Yes. Izuku looked up, his eyes hard. And if I take it, does that mean I have to become you? Toshinori blinked. Well, you would be the next All Might. Izuku slapped the hand away. The sound echoed in the alley. Toshinori looked shocked. No, Izuku said. No, I don't want to be All Might, Izuku hissed. All Might saves the world but leaves his family behind. All Might smiles while he's dying inside. I don't want that. He stepped closer, invading Tashinori's personal space. I'll take the power, Izuku said, his voice dropping to a growl. But not to be your successor. Not to be the next symbol of peace. Then why? To be better, Izuku said. I'll take it. I'll add it to my own power. And I'll become a hero who doesn't have to sacrifice everything to save everyone. I'll become the hero you couldn't be. He held out his hand, palm open, demanding, "Give it to me, Dad. Let's see if I can survive it." Tashinori looked at his son. He saw the anger, yes. But he saw the fire. A fire that burned brighter than his own ever had. Slowly, a small, sad smile touched Tashinori's lips. "You really are Inko's son," he whispered. Terrifying. Tashinori reached up and plucked a single golden hair from his head. "Eat this," he said. Izuku stared at the hair. He stared at his dad. "You're kidding. It's about DNA transfer." "Eat it," Izuku sighed. He snatched the hair. "If I die," Izuku said, popping the hair into his mouth and swallowing with a grimace, "Mom is going to kill you." "She probably will," Tashinori agreed nervously. As the hair settled in his stomach, Izuku felt it. A new heat. Different from overdrive. Not a biological thrum, but a spiritual roaring, a stockpile of power accumulated over generations, waiting for a vessel strong enough to hold it. Izuku's eyes glowed. Green lightning mixed with golden arcs of energy, cracking the pavement beneath his feet. "So," Izuku grinned, the expression sharp and dangerous. "When do we start training?" The hair tasted like ash and copper. It was a singular, dry strand that seemed to stick to the back of Izuku's throat, refusing to go down without a fight. He swallowed hard, grimacing as the biological material of the world's greatest hero traveled down his esophagus. "That," Izuku rasped, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand, "was the most disgusting thing I have ever done. And I've cleaned the lint traps in the school gym." Tashinori Yagi, All Might, stood in the dim light of the alleyway, looking both hopeful and terrifyingly gaunt. The transition from the muscular titan to this scarecrow figure was jarring, even for someone who had just witnessed it happen. He rubbed the back of his neck, a nervous tic that looked out of place on a man who usually stood with hands on his hips. "It is an acquired taste," Tashinori murmured. "Or so I assume. I've never had to eat my own hair." "You're making it weird," Izuku said flatly. "Stop making it weird." The sun had fully set now. The street lights of Muzutafu flickered on, casting long, distorted shadows against the brick walls. The adrenaline of the sludge villain incident was fading, replaced by a cold, creeping realization of what had just happened. Izuku Midoriya, the boy who had spent 10 years hating his father for leaving, had just consumed his DNA to inherit a power he didn't fully understand. "So," Izuku said, adjusting his bag on his shoulder. His uniform was still damp and smelled faintly of sewage, but the heat from his overdrive quirk had dried most of the moisture, leaving the fabric stiff. "I ate the hair. Do I get the superpowers now? Or is there a waiting period? Do I need to fill out a form?" Tashinori chuckled, a dry, rattling sound that ended in a cough. He covered his mouth with a handkerchief. When he pulled it away, Izuku saw the speck of red blood. The sight of it made Izuku's stomach twist. Not out of squeamishness, he'd broken his own fingers training his grip strength, but out of a sudden, sharp pang of reality. The symbol of peace was dying. "It takes time," Tashinori explained, his voice raspy. "Your body needs to digest the DNA. The power, one for all, has to integrate with your biological systems. Given your existing quirk, overdrive, the process might be volatile." "Volatile," Izuku repeated. "Great. As if overheating wasn't enough. We should get you home," Tashinori said softly. "Inko, your mother. She'll be worried." The mention of Inko made the air in the alley drop 10 degrees. Izuku stiffened. He looked at the skeletal man, then at the exit of the alley. "She doesn't know," Izuku said. "Does she? That you're back?" "No. She thinks you're in America. Or space. Or wherever you said you were going in that last letter 3 years ago." Tashinori flinched. "I was in Tokyo. Mostly." "Tokyo," Izuku scoffed, stepping out of the alley and onto the sidewalk. "A 2-hour train ride. You were 2 hours away while Mom worked double shifts at the hospital to pay for my quirk counseling." 2 hours away when I was 4 and tore the door off the refrigerator because I got excited about a cartoon. Izuku, don't, Izuku cut him off, walking briskly. Save the speeches. If you're coming home with me, you need to know the ground rules. You don't get to be All Might in that apartment. You're just the guy who left. You're on thin ice, old man. Glacial thin. Toshinori followed him, his long legs struggling to keep up with Izuku's power-walking pace. He looked like a stray dog following a butcher. I understand, Toshinori said humbly. I don't expect forgiveness. I need to explain. To both of you. Why I left. Why I stayed away. The big bad villain story, Izuku muttered. It better be good. It better be a horror story, because if you left us for anything less than the end of the world, I'm going to use this new power to throw you into the sun. The walk to the Midoriya apartment complex was excruciating. Every step felt heavy. Izuku could feel the energy in his stomach, not the food, but the hair. It sat there like a heavy stone, radiating a phantom heat that wasn't thermal but existential. One for all. A power passed down. A torch. Izuku looked at his hands. His palms were calloused from lifting weights, from punching sandbags until his knuckles bled. He had built this body to prove he didn't need anyone. He had built overdrive into a weapon to prove he could stand alone. And now? Now he carried the legacy of the man he resented most. It felt like a betrayal of his own principles. But he remembered the sludge villain. He remembered the fear in Bakugo's eyes. He remembered the feeling of his legs moving on their own. I didn't take it for him, Izuku told himself. I took it because it's a tool. A weapon. And if I'm going to be the best, I need the best weapons. They reached the apartment door. Number 304. Izuku's hand hovered over the doorknob. He could hear the television inside. The news. Probably a replay of All Might saving the day. Ready? Izuku asked, not looking back. Toshinori stood behind him, clutching his side. He straightened his blazer, trying to look presentable, though nothing could hide the goneness of his face. No, Toshinori admitted. But I am here. Izuku opened the door. Mom, I'm home. Izuku. Inko's voice came from the kitchen, frantic. She rushed into the hallway, wiping her hands on an apron. Her eyes were red-rimmed. I saw the news. The fires. The sludge villain. They said a student ran in. I knew it was you. I saw the green lightning on the helicopter footage. Are you hurt? Did you burn yourself? She was on him in a second, her hands fluttering over his arms, checking for burns, for cuts. She was a whirlwind of maternal anxiety. I'm fine, Mom. Really? Just my uniform needs a wash. You recklessly charged in. Even the pro-heroes were standing back. What were you thinking? You could have been killed. And then All Might showed up and, she stopped. She looked over Izuku's shoulder. Standing in the doorway, framed by the darkness of the corridor, was a tall, blond skeleton of a man. He looked like a ghost. He looked like a memory that had been left out in the sun too long and dried up. But Inko knew those eyes. Deep blue, with black scare from the shadows, but unmistakably his. The hallway went silent. The only sound was the humming of the refrigerator from the kitchen. Inko's hands dropped from Izuku's arms. She took a step back, her breath hitching in her throat. Toshi? She whispered. Toshinori stepped inside, removing his shoes with slow, deliberate movements. He bowed his head. Hello, Inko. Inko stared. Her eyes traced the sharp angles of his cheekbones, the hollows of his neck, the way his clothes hung off him like they were 3 sizes too big. You! She covered her mouth. Tears welled up instantly, spilling over faster than she could wipe them away. You look, oh God, Toshi. What happened to you? She didn't yell. She didn't scream about him leaving. Her first instinct, her defining trait, was worry. She saw the sickness before she saw the abandonment. Toshinori's voice cracked. He looked at Izuku, then back to Inko. I have been unwell. Unwell? Inko let out a wet, hysterical laugh. You look like you're dying. I might be, he admitted softly. That broke the dam. Inko rushed forward, grabbing his jacket, burying her face in his chest. She sobbed, a sound of pure, unadulterated heartbreak. Toshinori froze for a moment, his arms hovering, before he slowly wrapped them around her small frame. Izuku stood by the shoe rack, watching. He felt like an intruder. He felt a sudden spike of heat in his chest, overdrive reacting to his emotional state. He clenched his fists, forcing the temperature down. She still loves him, Izuku thought, a bitter taste in his mouth. After everything, she just sees the man who is hurting. Come in, Inko managed to say, pulling back and wiping her face, though the tears kept coming. Come in. Sit down. I made Katsudon. There's enough. Toshinori looked at Izuku. Izuku jerked his head toward the living room. Go, Izuku said. Before she changes her mind and levitates you out the window. The living room was exactly as Toshinori remembered it, yet completely different. The furniture was the same, but the atmosphere had shifted. There were no pictures of him. The framed photo of the three of them at the park that used to sit on the mantel was gone, replaced by a picture of Izuku winning a karate tournament, and another of Inko and Izuku at a hot spring. He had been erased. And he knew he deserved it. They sat around the low table. Inko placed a cup of tea in front of Toshinori. Her hands were shaking so bad the cup rattled against the saucer. Explain, Inko said. She sat next to Izuku, her hand gripping her son's knee, as if grounding herself. Toshinori took a sip of the tea. It's a long story. A dangerous one. We have time, Izuku said, crossing his arms. And we've already had dangerous. I fought a sludge monster today. Try me, Toshinori sighed. He set the cup down. He looked at his hands that had saved thousands, but failed the two people in front of him. You know me as All Might, he began, his voice low. The world knows me as the symbol of peace. But that title, it comes with a shadow. A shadow that has stretched back for generations. He looked up, meeting Izuku's gaze. Have you ever heard of a man named All for One? Izuku frowned. It sounds like a quirk. Or a bad comic book villain. He is both, Toshinori said grimly. And he is very real. He was the ruler of the underground during the dawn of quirks. A man who could steal powers and give them to others. He created an empire of fear. Toshinori recounted the history. The brother with the stockpiling quirk. The creation of One for All. The generations of successors who fought and died, passing the torch through the dark, trying to keep the light alive. Inko listened, pale and silent. Izuku analyzed, his mind racing. A stockpiling quirk passed down, that explains the hair. That explains the very nature of the power Dad showed today. Wind pressure, strength. It's just raw energy. 5 years ago, Toshinori continued, his hand drifting to his injury, I tracked him down. It was supposed to be the final battle. I thought I killed him. He lifted his shirt. Inko gasped, covering her mouth again. The scar was a violent, twisted map of agony on his side. He took my stomach. He destroyed one of my lungs. I survived, barely. But the doctors told me I had years, not decades. And I knew, if he had survived, or if his followers knew I had a weakness. He looked at Inko, his eyes pleading. Inko, if they knew about you, if All for One knew I had a heart that lived outside of my body, he wouldn't just kill you. He would use you. He would torture you to break me. I couldn't risk it. I had to cut the connection. I had to be alone. So you decided for us, Izuku said. His voice was quiet, vibrating with restrained fury. Izuku, you decided we were safer ignorant, Izuku said, standing up. The air around him began to shimmer. You decided that silence was better than preparation. Do you know what it's like? Growing up with a quirk like mine? A quirk that hurts me if I don't control it perfectly? And wondering why my dad, the great hero, never called to ask how I was doing? I wanted to, Toshinori argued. Every day. But phone lines can be tapped. Mail can be intercepted. You're All Might, Izuku shouted. You're the #1 hero. You could have found a way. You could have told Mom the truth 5 years ago and moved us into a fortress. But you chose to run. You chose to be the symbol instead of the father. Izuku, stop, Inko whispered, pulling on his arm. No, Mom. He needs to hear it. Izuku pointed a finger at the skeletal man. You say you did it to protect us. But look at you. You're dying. And now you come back, why? Because you need a successor? Because you need someone to carry your baggage? Tashinori looked down. Yes. That is part of it. But mostly, because I realized that in trying to save the world I lost my world. And I wanted to see you one last time before the embers burn out. Embers? Inko asked, her voice trembling. My power, Tashinori explained. I passed it to Izuku today. Inko froze. She looked at her son. You did what? I ate his hair, Izuku admitted bluntly. Don't ask. You gave him your quirk? Inko turned to Tashinori, her shock turning to anger. You gave him the thing that put a target on your back? You gave him the thing that got you gutted? It is the only way to stop All for One, Tashinori said. If he returns, Izuku has the potential to be stronger than I ever was. He has overdrive. Combined with One for All, he could be invincible. I don't want him to be invincible. Inko cried, standing up and knocking her chair over. I want him to be safe. I want him to be happy. You leave for 10 years and you come back to draft him into a war? Mom, Izuku stepped in, putting a hand on her shoulder. Her body was shaking. Mom, breathe. How can I breathe, Izuku? He wants you to fight the monster that did that to him. She pointed at the scar. I know, Izuku said. He looked at Tashinori. The anger was still there, but it was cooling into something harder. Resolve. I didn't take it for him, Izuku said to his mother. And I didn't take it to be the symbol of peace. He looked at his hands again. He could feel the power now, truly beginning to settle. It felt like a second heart beating in his stomach. He says All for One might be alive, Izuku said. He says there are villains out there who would hunt us if they knew. Yes, Tashinori confirmed. Then I need the power, Izuku said. He looked at Inko. Because if he comes for us, if he comes for you, I'm not going to be helpless. I'm not going to be like him, he gestured to his father, and run away to keep you safe. I'm going to stand in front of you and break him. Inko looked at her son. He looked so much older than 14. He looked like a warrior. Izuku, I'm going to you, Mom, Izuku said firmly. I'm going to master this curse he gave me. And I'm going to make sure that no one ever threatens this family again. He turned to Tashinori. You're going to teach me, Izuku commanded. You're going to teach me everything you know about this power. Not because I'm your fan. Not because I'm your son. But because you owe me. You owe us. Tashinori looked at the boy, the young man, standing before him. He saw the strength. He saw the fire. It wasn't the pure, blinding light of the symbol of peace. It was a darker, fiercer flame. A protective fire. Tashinori bowed his head deep, his forehead touching the table. I will, he vowed. I will give you everything I have left. Later that night, the apartment was quiet. Tashinori had left. Inko couldn't handle him staying the night, not yet. He had checked into a hotel nearby. Izuku lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. He couldn't sleep. The humming in his bones was different now. Before, overdrive had been a constant, low-level vibration. Now, with One for All in his system, it felt like he was plugged into a high-voltage line. The heat was rising. I need to vent, Izuku thought. I need to burn this off, or I'm going to melt through the mattress. He slipped out of bed, dressed in his tracksuit, and climbed out the window. He moved through the shadows of the city, heading for the one place he knew would be empty at 2 a.m., Dagoba Municipal Beach Park. Or, as the locals called it, the trash heap. Mountains of garbage stretched along the coastline. Tires, refrigerators, broken cars. It was a graveyard of consumerism. Izuku walked to the center of a clearing surrounded by stacks of trash. The smell was awful, but the ocean breeze helped. Okay, Izuku whispered. He shook his arms out. Let's see what I bought with that hair. He closed his eyes. He reached for the feeling of overdrive, that familiar switch in his mind. Click, the green lightning flared. His muscles tensed, the bioelectricity flooding his system. He was at his safe baseline, 5% overdrive, but then he reached for the other thing. The new thing. The ball of light he could feel sitting in the pit of his stomach, One for All. He pulled at it. It didn't flow like water. It exploded like a dam breaking. Gah! Izuku gasped as the power rushed through him. It didn't mix with overdrive. It collided with it. His veins bulged. The green lightning turned erratic, spiking with golden arcs that lashed out, scorching the sand around him. The heat was instantaneous. Usually, overdrive took minutes to heat him up to dangerous levels. This was instant fever. 102 degrees. 104. Too much. Izuku gritted his teeth. Dial it back. He tried to suppress it, but the power was wild. He felt like he was holding a hurricane in a paper cup. He needed to release it. He looked at a rusted refrigerator tower in front of him. Smash! He threw a punch. He didn't use technique. He didn't use his hips. He just shoved his arm forward with everything he had. Crack boom. The sound was deafening. The refrigerator didn't just dent, it disintegrated. The metal shrapnel was launched seaward at the speed of bullets. The air pressure blast carved a trench through the trash pile 30 feet long and 10 feet wide, blowing the water of the ocean back in a massive spray. Izuku screamed. He fell to his knees, clutching his right arm. It wasn't broken. His bones were denser than normal humans thanks to overdrive's passive reinforcement, but the muscles were shredded. His arm was purple, steam pouring off the skin in thick, white clouds. Warning, Izuku panted, his vision blurring. System overheating. He fell onto his back, staring at the stars. The pain was blinding. The heat was suffocating. Impressive. The voice came from the top of a trash pile. Izuku strained his neck. Toshinori stood there, silhouetted against the moon. He was in his skeletal form, wearing a yellow tracksuit that hung loosely on him. You followed me, Izuku accused, his voice weak. I figured you would try to test it, Toshinori said, sliding down the trash pile with surprising grace. He walked over to Izuku and knelt down. He inspected the arm. Micro tears in the muscle fibers, Toshinori diagnosed. Severe bruising. And you're running a fever of, what? 105? 106, Izuku corrected, closing his eyes. My limit is 108. After that, proteins start to denature and I die. Good to know, Toshinori said. He pulled a bottle of water from his pocket and pressed it against Izuku's forehead. The plastic hissed as it touched his skin. You tried to use 100%, Toshinori said. I tried to use whatever came out, Izuku groaned. It's not like it came with a volume knob. It does, Toshinori said. But the knob is rusted. You have to grease it. Toshinori sat on the sand beside him. You have overdrive, Toshinori noted. Your body is used to enhancement. That's why your arm isn't broken. If a normal person did that, their limb would have exploded. You are a durable vessel, Izuku, but even a steel tank bursts if you overfill it with pressure, it felt. Izuku searched for the word. Angry. The power felt angry. It's not anger, Toshinori looked out at the ocean. It's will. The will of 8 people before you. They are all in there, shouting to be let out. You have to learn to quiet them. To channel them. How? Think of overdrive as the engine, Toshinori said, using a metaphor he hoped the boy would understand. And one for all is the fuel. Right now, you just dumped a gallon of nitro into a lawnmower. Izuku chuckled then winced. I'm not a lawnmower. I'm at least a sedan. Fair enough. A sports sedan? Toshinori smiled. You need to mix the fuel. Don't just pull on OFA. Infuse it into your overdrive. Let them become one system. Visualize the green lightning and the golden light weaving together. Not colliding. Izuku lay there, listening to the waves. The pain was ebbing away, the regenerative properties of his accelerated metabolism kicking in. Hey, Dad? Toshinori stiffened at the word. It was the first time Izuku had said it without sarcasm. Yes? Does it ever get lighter? The power? The burden? Toshinori looked down at his son. He brushed a stray hair from Izuku's sweaty forehead. No, Toshinori admitted softly. It gets heavier. As you get stronger, the expectations grow. The enemies get darker. The fear of failure gets sharper. He paused. But Toshinori added, you get stronger too. And if you're lucky, if you're smarter than I was, you don't have to carry it alone. Izuku opened his eyes. The green glow was gone, leaving only the dark irises that mirrored his mother's. "I'm not going to be alone," Izuku said. "I have you." For now, Toshinori agreed. "I have about 3 hours of hero time a day. The rest. I am just Toshinori. Toshinori is going to have to do," Izuku said. He sat up, wincing as his arm throbbed. "You're going to help me clean this beach." Toshinori looked around at the acres of garbage. All of it, Izuku said. "If I'm going to handle this power without cooking my brain, I need a better cooling system. I need more muscle mass. And I need control." He stood up, swaying slightly. 10 months until the UA entrance exam, Izuku declared. "I'm going to clear this entire beach. And I'm going to learn how to use this power without blowing my arm off." Toshinori stood up as well. He placed a hand on Izuku's good shoulder. "Then let's get to work," Toshinori said. "But first, let's get you some ice. Inko will kill me if you come home smelling like burned steak." "Too late," Izuku smirked. "I already smell like trash." They walked out of the beach together. 2 figures, one tall and broken, one young and burning. The gap between them was still there. Years of silence couldn't be fixed in a day, but a bridge had been started, built on hair, trash, and a secret that could save the world. 2 days later, the weekend ended, and reality resumed. Izuku walked into Aldera Junior High with his arm wrapped in a compression bandage. He kept his head down, trying to ignore the whispers. The news cycle had moved on from the sludge villain, but the school hadn't. "Midoriya!" Izuku stopped at his locker. He sighed. Bakugo stood there. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't popping explosions. He looked unsettled. "What is it, Kaken?" "Your arm," Bakugo pointed. "Is that from the villain?" "Training accident," Izuku lied smoothly. "Bullshit," Bakugo narrowed his eyes. "I saw the news. You ran in. You did something. And then All Might showed up." Bakugo leaned in closer, lowering his voice. "And I saw you yesterday. Walking out of the grocery store with that skeleton guy. The one who looks like a drug addict." Izuku's heart skipped a beat. "He's a relative. An uncle. He looks like he's dying," Bakugo said bluntly. "And you look different." Bakugo stared at Izuku. He had good instincts. Too good. He sensed the shift in the hierarchy. The prey had evolved. "You're hiding something, Deku," Bakugo whispered. "And I'm going to figure it out. You think just because you got a lucky hit on a villain you're better than me?" Izuku closed his locker. He turned to face Bakugo. For the first time, Izuku didn't feel the need to defend himself. He had the power of the greatest hero in his gut. He had a training schedule from All Might in his pocket. He had a goal that went beyond schoolyard rivalries. "I'm not trying to be better than you, Kaken," Izuku said calm. "I'm trying to be ready." "Ready for what?" "For everything." Izuku walked past him. Bakugo watched him go, a scowl deepening on his face. He looked at his own hands, sparks popping off his palms. "Ready," Bakugo thought. "He thinks he's leaving me behind. Just watch me, Deku!" Bakugo yelled down the hallway, drawing stares from everyone. "I'll crush you at the entrance exam. I'll be the undisputed #1. Izuku didn't look back. He raised a hand in a lazy wave, continuing his path. The heat in his bones was manageable today. The embers were glowing, steady and warm. The boy who would be king had taken his first step toward the throne. And the path was paved with garbage, secrets, and the weight of the world. The integration of power was not a spiritual awakening. It was a hostile takeover. For the first week after consuming the DNA of the symbol of peace, Izuku Midoriya felt less like a hero and more like a walking nuclear reactor with a coolant leak. The strand of hair had dissolved in his stomach, but the energy it carried seemed to have bonded with his very cells, specifically targeting the bioelectric generator that was his quirk, overdrive. It was Saturday morning, 5 days into the 10-month hell plan. Dagoba Municipal Beach Park was shrouded in a thick, salty mist. Izuku stood waist-deep in the ocean, the cold water hissing violently as it touched his skin. He wasn't wearing a shirt. His torso, already defined with the lean, dense muscle of a sprinter, was currently flushed a violent shade of pink. "Regulate!" A voice called out from the shore. Toshinori Yagi sat on a rusted washing machine, holding a stopwatch. He wore a baggy yellow tracksuit that made him look like a deflated banana, but his eyes were sharp, scanning Izuku's form for tremors. "I'm trying." Izuku gritted out, his teeth chattering not from cold, but from the sheer effort of containment. "Don't fight the heat," Toshinori instructed, his voice carrying over the crashing waves. "Overdrive generates heat as a byproduct of muscle stimulation. One for all amplifies that output exponentially. If you try to suppress it, you'll boil your internal organs. You have to cycle it." "Cycle it?" Izuku muttered, water steaming around his waist. "Easy for you to say. You don't have a car engine inside your chest." Izuku closed his eyes. He visualized the two powers. Overdrive was green, sharp, jagged, electric. It was his own. It was the power that allowed him to tear a phone book in half at age 6. One for all was gold, heavy, thick, viscous. It was the power of 8 ghosts screaming in a canyon. When he tried to activate overdrive, the golden power rushed in uninvited, flooding the circuits. It was like trying to drink from a fire hose. "Don't dam the river," Izuku told himself. "Divert it." He took a deep breath, inhaling the salt spray. He flexed his hands underwater. Overdrive 5%. The green lightning flickered across his skin. Immediately, the golden surge rose up to meet it. Izuku felt his temperature spike. 99, 101. 103. Vent it. Instead of holding the power in his core, Izuku pushed it outward, imagining exhaust ports opening on his skin. He punched the water. Boom! A column of water shot 20 feet into the air, vaporizing instantly into a cloud of hot steam. The ocean around him bubbled. Izuku stood up, panting. The redness on his skin faded slightly as the excess energy was expelled. "Better," Toshinori nodded, clicking the stopwatch. "You lasted 12 seconds before reaching critical temperature. That's a 2-second improvement." Izuku waded out of the water, steam trailing off his shoulders like a cape. He grabbed a towel and dried his face, his expression grim. 2 seconds, Izuku scoffed. "At this rate, I'll be able to fight a villain for a whole minute by the time the entrance exam rolls around. Provided the villain agrees to fight me underwater." "Progress is progress," Toshinori said, handing him a bottle of electrolyte water. "You're trying to merge 2 massive power sources, Izuku. Most bodies would explode. The fact that you are merely overheating is a testament to your natural durability." Izuku chugged the water, crushing the plastic bottle in his grip. My biological dad, had a fire-breathing quirk. Mom has telekinesis. Somehow I got a body that turns energy into strength and heat. Maybe I was built for this. Or maybe," Toshinori said quietly, looking at the trash-covered beach, "you're building yourself for it." Month 3, the theory of limits. The training routine was brutal. Toshinori, despite his frailty, was a slave driver. He didn't just want Izuku to lift trash. He wanted him to move it with intent. Heroism isn't just moving heavy objects. Toshinori yelled one afternoon as Izuku dragged a pickup truck frame through the sand. "It's about how you move them. Are you checking for civilians inside? Are you stabilizing the load so it doesn't fall? Are you smiling to reassure the bystanders?" "I'm not smiling while I drag a 2-ton truck through sand," Izuku yelled back, veins bulging in his neck. "And there are no bystanders. Just seagulls. The seagulls are judging you," Toshinori retorted. But the physical training was only half the battle. The real war was internal. Izuku sat in his room late one night, surrounded by notebooks. His latest journal, Hero Analysis for the Future number 13, lay open. But instead of analyzing heroes, he was analyzing himself. Subject me, quirk interaction, overdrive OFA. He drew a diagram. Overdrive reinforced his bones and muscles, making them denser than steel at high percentages. This meant he didn't shatter his limbs like a normal human would if they used 100% of OFA. However, the energy friction was the killer. Problem: the output of OFA creates friction within the muscle fibers. Solution: I need to increase the density of the vessel to absorb the heat and improve the cooling system. Izuku looked at the fan in the corner of his room. It was oscillating. "Circulation," he whispered. He stood up. He activated overdrive. Usually, he focused the power where he needed it. Legs for running, arms for punching. This created hotspots. Localized overheating. What if I spread it? He spread the energy. A thin film of green and gold covering his entire body, constant and flowing. The full call concept, but applied to his bioelectricity. The heat rose, but it was distributed. His whole body felt like a fever, but his arm didn't feel like it was melting. Distributed load, Izuku scribbled in the notebook. Maintain constant 8% output. Vent heat through movement. He looked at the calendar on his wall. Yui entrance exam, 7 months. He clenched his fist. The green lightning sparked, controlled. Silent. Month 8, the golden vessel. The change was gradual, then sudden. Inko Midoriya noticed it first at the dinner table. She watched her son eat. He was consuming nearly 4,000 calories a day now, and realized that his shirts no longer fit. The seams were straining against shoulders that had broadened significantly. His neck was thicker. Even his jawline seemed to have been chiseled out of granite. He didn't look like a middle schooler. He looked like a collegiate athlete. Izuku, she said, placing a bowl of stew down. You need new clothes. I'm fine, Mom, Izuku said, mouth full of rice. You ripped your sleeve reaching for the soy sauce, she pointed out gently. Izuku looked down. Indeed, the fabric of his shirt had split at the bicep. He sighed. Sorry. Controlling the output is still tricky. Tashinori says you're doing well, Inko said. The name still carried a weight, a mixture of old affection and lingering resentment, but she was tolerating his presence in their lives, mostly because she saw how he looked at Izuku, with a pride that mirrored her own. He's a good teacher, Izuku admitted. For a guy who solved every problem by punching it, he actually knows a lot about biomechanics. He had to learn, Inko said softly. After his injury. He had to learn how to be a hero while broken. Izuku stopped eating. He thought about the skeleton man on the beach, coughing blood into a handkerchief, then standing up to show Izuku how to pivot his foot for maximum leverage. Yeah, Izuku said. I guess he did. The next day, the test came. The beach was unrecognizable. Where there had once been mountains of garbage, there was now pristine white sand. The horizon was visible. The water sparkled, free of oil slicks and floating debris. Only one item remained. A massive, rusted engine block from a ferry, half buried in the wet sand near the shoreline. It must have weighed 3 tons. Tashinori stood by the seawall. He wasn't wearing his baggy tracksuit today. He was wearing a button-down shirt and slacks. He looked solemn. This is it, Tashinori said. The final piece. Izuku stood before the engine block. He wore a black tank top and gym shorts. His skin was bronzed from months in the sun. Scars from minor burns and cuts littered his arms, trophies of the process. It's heavy, Izuku noted. It is, Tashinori agreed. Show me you can carry it. Izuku closed his eyes. He didn't just turn the switch. He ignited the engine. Overdrive 15%. The air around him warped. The sand beneath his feet turned to glass in tiny patches where the sparks hit. His skin flushed a deep, healthy red, like iron in a forge. He squatted down, gripping the rusted metal. The edges dug into his palms. Huaja, Izuku lifted. His muscles coiled and snapped taut. The green lightning turned blinding, and within the green, thick veins of golden energy pulsed like a second heartbeat. The engine block tore free from the suction of the wet sand. Izuku stood up, lifting the massive weight onto his shoulder. His feet sank 6 inches into the ground, but his legs held firm. He didn't just lift it. He turned. He looked at Tashinori. And then, for the first time in months, he smiled. It wasn't All Might's smile. It was sharper. A predator's grin. A challenger's smirk. Is this heavy enough for you, old man? Izuku strained, his voice vibrating with power. Tashinori's eyes widened. In that moment, he didn't see a successor. He saw a titan. He saw a vessel that wasn't just holding the power, but owning it. It is sufficient. Tashinori laughed, transforming into his muscle form for a brief second to give a thumbs up, blood spraying from his mouth in excitement. You are ready! You have mastered the vessel! Izuku roared and hurled the engine block. It flew 20 meters, splashing into the deep water with a massive geyser. He collapsed onto the sand, panting, steam rising from his body in a thick cloud. He was ready. The entrance exam. The day of the UA entrance exam was crisp and clear. The gates of UA High stood tall, intimidating, and gleaming in the morning sun. Hundreds of students from across the country streamed through, a river of black uniforms and nervous energy. Izuku Midoriya walked against the current of anxiety. He moved with a relaxed, predatory gait. He wore his middle school uniform, but he carried himself like a soldier returning to the front lines. Out of my way, Deku. The voice was a growl. Bakugo walked up beside him, hands in his pockets, his posture slouched but aggressive. Morning, Kaken, Izuku said, not slowing down. You didn't apply to Shiketsu, Bakugo muttered. I checked. I told you, Izuku said, looking at the massive glass building. I'm going here, Bakugo scoffed. Don't trip on your own shoelaces and die before we get to the arena. I want to be the one to crush you. Focus on your own score, Izuku replied coolly. I'd hate for you to end up in Gen Ed. Bakugo's eye twitched, but before he could explode, Izuku had already accelerated, weaving through the crowd. Izuku reached the main courtyard. He was looking at the architecture, calculating the structural integrity of the walls, when he felt a shift in gravity near him. Whoa! A girl with a brown bob cut had tripped on a loose paving stone. She was falling forward, flailing. Izuku didn't panic. He didn't stutter. His right hand shot out. Overdrive, 2%. He caught her by the back of her blazer, halting her fall instantly. With his other hand he steadied her arm, pulling her back to a vertical position with effortless strength. Careful, Izuku said. Gravity is a harsh mistress. The girl, Ochako Uraraka, blinked, staring up at him. She expected a nervous boy. Instead, she was looking at someone with intense green eyes and a grip like a vice. Oh. Thank you? She flushed. I'm so clumsy. I'm Uraraka, Midoriya, Izuku nodded, releasing her. Good luck in there, Uraraka. Try not to fall until the exam starts. He walked away before she could respond. Uraraka stood there, blinking. Wow. Intense. The written exam. The written portion was a joke. Izuku had spent his childhood analyzing quirks, physics, and hero laws. He finished the test with 20 minutes to spare. He spent the remaining time analyzing the proctor, present mic, figuring out the directional limits of his voice quirk based on the speaker set up in the room. The orientation. Everybody say hey. Present mic screamed. Silence. Izuku sat in the auditorium, tapping his pen. He listened to the explanation of the robots. 1-pointers, 2-pointers, 3-pointers, and the 0-pointer. An obstacle to be avoided. Avoided, Izuku thought. Or a trap for the foolish. Excuse me. A tall boy with glasses and engines in his calves stood up. Tenya Ida? May I ask a question? Ida proceeded to grill Present Mike about the fourth robot type, and then turned to point a stiff finger at Izuku. And you? The one with the curly hair. You've been muttering to yourself this entire time. It's distracting. If you're here to make light of this institution, you should leave. The auditorium went quiet. Everyone looked at Izuku. Izuku stopped tapping his pen. He slowly turned his head. His eyes glowed faintly green, a subconscious reaction to irritation. I'm muttering about the tactical disadvantage of a tiered point system that favors destructive quirks over rescue utility, Izuku said, his voice carrying clearly through the silent hall. I'm analyzing the battlefield. If that distracts you, maybe you don't have the focus required for the hero course. Ida froze. The students whispered. Sit down. Ida stammered, flustered by the cold logic. Apologies. Izuku turned back to the stage. Proceed, Present Mike. Present Mike sweated slightly. Okay. Tough crowd. Let's move on. Battle Center B. The mock city was massive. Skyscrapers, streets, cars. It was a Hollywood set on steroids. Izuku stood at the gate of Battle Center B. He wore a simple green tracksuit with reinforced padding on the elbows and knees. He stretched his neck, cracking the vertebrae. Uraraka was there, looking nervous. Ida was there, revving his engines. Izuku closed his eyes. He initiated the sequence. Heart rate lowered. Body temp 98.6. Overdrive primed. Start. Present Mix's voice boomed from the towers. There are no countdowns in real battles. While the other examinees processed the shout, Izuku was already gone. Boom! The pavement where he stood cracked. Izuku was a green blur, leaving a trail of dust in his wake. He was the first one in the city. The hunt, a three-pointer, a massive drone-like robot with tank treads, rolled around the corner. Target acquired. Too slow, Izuku whispered. He didn't stop running. He channeled overdrive into his legs, increasing the torque. He leaped, spinning in the air. Detroit smash, 10%. He slammed his heel into the robot's head. The metal crumpled like wet cardboard. The robot exploded into scrap. Izuku landed and immediately pivoted. Two one-pointers were flanking him. He extended his hands. The heat was rising. Smash! A shockwave of air pressure from his palms knocked the robots backward, smashing them into a building wall. 6 points. 10 seconds. He moved like a storm. He didn't just destroy the robots. He dismantled them with brutal efficiency. He tore turrets off with his bare hands. He kicked tank treads until they snapped. In the observation room, the teachers watched the screens. Good grief, Midnight murmured. Who is that kid in Center B? Izuku Midoriya, Nizu, the principal, said, sipping tea. Physical scores were off the charts. He moves like a villain, Snipe noted. Pure aggression. But look at his awareness. On the screen, Izuku grabbed a one-pointer and used it as a shield to block a missile from a three-pointer, then threw the one-pointer at the three-pointer. Resourceful, Aizawa muttered, his eyes narrowed. But he's running hot. Look at the steam. Indeed, Izuku was steaming. His skin was flushing red. 50 points, Izuku counted. 55. He was in the zone. The golden power of One for All was humming in his gut, feeding the engine of overdrive. It felt good. It felt right. He turned a corner and saw Uraraka. She was floating a robot, looking exhausted. Need a hand? Izuku asked, crushing a two-pointer that was sneaking up on her. I am okay. She panted. Just, wow, you're fast. Keep moving, Izuku advised. The big ones congregate near the center. He left her, hunting for more prey. 60 points. That should be enough to pass. But I need to dominate. He wanted to set a record. He wanted All Might to see this and know he hadn't made a mistake. Then, the ground shook. The Titan. It started as a vibration in the soles of his feet. Then, the buildings trembled. Windows shattered. From the central plaza, a shadow eclipsed the sun, the zero-pointer. It was bigger than the reports suggested. It was a skyscraper on treads. A colossal machine of destruction. Flee! The speakers announced. The students panicked. It was a stampede. They ran past Izuku, screaming, It's too big! There's no points for that thing! Run! Izuku stood his ground. He looked up at the metal face of the giant. Inefficient design, he analyzed automatically. High center of gravity. Exposed neck joints. He turned to run. There was no point in fighting it. Ow! A cry. Izuku stopped. He looked back. Uraraka was trapped under rubble. The zero-pointer was looming over her, its massive tread descending to crush the street where she lay. The other students were gone. Ida was running away, glancing back but hesitating. Izuku didn't hesitate. My legs moved on their own. No. That was the old Izuku. This Izuku moved with purpose. He turned toward the Titan. He crouched. Warning, he muttered to himself. Disengaging safety limiters, he reached into the core of the golden light. He didn't pull 5%. He didn't pull 15%. He pulled it all. One for all, 100%. Overdrive max output. The transformation was terrifying. Izuku's skin turned a glowing, molten gold red. His veins shone like green neon tubes. The ground beneath him vaporized from the sheer heat radiating off his body. Overdrive. He launched himself. It wasn't a jump. It was a rocket launch. He tore through the air, breaking the sound barrier instantly. Boom. A sonic boom shattered every remaining window in the district. He flew upward, a streak of green and gold fire. He reached the face of the zero-pointer in a heartbeat. He pulled his fist back. The air around his arm ignited. Engine. Smash! He punched. The impact was blinding. The zero-pointer didn't just break. It was obliterated. The head of the robot was vaporized. The force of the punch traveled down the chassis, twisting the metal, blowing out the back of the machine. A tunnel of pressurized air pierced the sky, splitting the clouds above the arena. The massive robot tipped backward, crashing into the buildings with an earth-shattering roar. Izuku hovered in the air for a second, suspended by the updraft of his own power. Then, gravity took hold. He fell. Pain. His right arm was purple, swollen, and steaming. His legs felt like jelly. His body temperature was critical. 108 degrees. 109. Cool down. Cool down or you die. He plummeted toward the pavement. Uraraka, freed from the rubble by the shockwave, looked up in horror. He's going to hit the ground. She slapped herself. Release. She slapped a piece of rubble, floating it up, then jumped to catch him? No, she couldn't reach him. Izuku saw the ground rushing up. I can't land on my legs. They'll snap. He had one shot. He pointed his good arm, his left, at the ground. Detroit smash. Air brake. He fired a pulse of air pressure. It wasn't enough to stop him, but it slowed him down. He crashed into the street, rolling, tumbling, smashing through a concrete planter before coming to a stop. Steam hissed from his body like a downed locomotive. Silence fell over the arena. The students stopped running. They looked back. They saw the fallen titan. They saw the crater in the street. Ida adjusted his glasses, his hands shaking. He destroyed it. With one hit. Uraraka ran to him. Midoriya! Izuku lay on his back. His tracksuit was burned off his right side. His skin was blistering from the heat. He opened his eyes. They were hazy. Izuku coughed, smoke coming out of his mouth. Is she safe? I'm here. Uraraka cried, hovering over him. I'm okay. You saved me. Good, Izuku whispered. Time's up. Present Mike yelled. Izuku closed his eyes. The heat was fading, replaced by a cold exhaustion. He heard footsteps. Heavy ones? Recovery Girl was walking toward him, but someone else was watching from the observation tower's shadows. All Might gripped the railing, his knuckles white. He was smiling. A real, genuine smile. You did it, Toshinori whispered. You crazy, reckless, magnificent boy. 1 week later, the letter arrived. It wasn't a letter. It was a hologram projector. Izuku sat at his desk, his arm in a sling. The burns were healing, thanks to Recovery Girl and his own metabolism, but he was grounded from quirks for a week. He pressed the button. All Might appeared. He was in his Silver Age costume. I am here. As a projection, Izuku rolled his eyes. He recorded this? We had dinner last night, young Midoriya. The hologram boomed. You passed the written exam with flying colors. But the practical. Oh, the practical. The screen changed. It showed the scoreboard. Villain points, 68. Rescue points, 0. Izuku frowned. 0 rescue points? Even after saving Uraraka? But wait! All Might yelled. A hero's job is to save. And you risked everything to save a fellow examinee. A video played. It was Uraraka, standing in the teacher's office. Please! She pleaded. Give him my points. He saved me. He jumped when everyone else ran. Izuku's eyes widened. Your actions moved the judges. All Might declared. Rescue points are a hidden metric. And for your sacrifice against the 0-pointer, the score updated. Villain points, 68. Rescue points, 60. Total, 128. Welcome, Izuku Midoriya. All Might pointed at the camera. This is your Hero Academia. Izuku watched the hologram fade. He looked at his hand, the hand that had smashed a giant. He didn't cry. He didn't tremble. He smirked. Top of the leaderboard, Izuku whispered. Your move, Kaken. He stood up and walked to the door. Yue was waiting. And the heir apparent was coming to claim his throne. The uniform of Yue High School was a masterpiece of ballistic weave and high-grade polymer blend, designed to be durable, breathable, and dignified. For Izuku Midoriya, it was a straitjacket. He stood in front of the mirror in his bedroom, adjusting the gray blazer. It was a size too large according to the tag, but it strained across his shoulders. His neck, thickened by years of overdrive usage and the recent influx of One for All, felt constricted by the red tie. Izuku? Inko's voice drifted from the hallway. You're going to be late. And you haven't eaten your mackerel. I'm coming, Mom, Izuku called back. He rolled his shoulders. A sickening crack pop echoed in the small room. He took a breath, activating his quirk for a microsecond. Green sparks danced along his collarbone, and a wave of heat flushed his skin before vanishing. The engine was idling. The oil pressure was good. He grabbed his yellow backpack, a holdover from his middle school days that looked comically small on his back now, and stepped out. In the kitchen, Inko was vibrating with anxiety. She smoothed his lapels, her hands lingering on the dense muscle of his arms. You look handsome, she said, her voice wobbling. But you also look like you're going to a boxing match, not a math class. It's the hero course, Mom, Izuku said, taking a bite of the fish. Every class is a boxing match. Just be careful, she whispered. Tashinori said the teachers there are strict. Especially the homeroom teacher. At the mention of his father's name, Izuku's expression tightened. I don't care what he said. I'm not going there to make friends with the teachers. I'm going there to get my license. He finished the breakfast in 3 bites. His metabolism was currently running hot enough to burn through a Thanksgiving dinner in an hour, and headed for the door. Izuku! Inko called out one last time. He paused, hand on the knob. You're not him, she said firmly. You don't have to be. Izuku looked back, his green eyes dark and unreadable. I know. He saves people with a smile. I'm just going to save them. The smile is optional. The gates of judgment. Uehai was less a school and more a fortress of glass and steel. The famous H-shaped barrier gleamed in the morning sun, a symbol of the divide between the ordinary and the extraordinary. Izuku walked through the gates, ignoring the whispers of the other students. He was used to whispers. In Aldera, they were whispers of fear. Here, they were whispers of assessment. Everyone was sizing everyone else up. That guy has a mutation type. Strong legs. Speedster? The girl with the ear jacks. Sound quirk. Reconnaissance. The floating uniform, invisibility. Stealth specialist. Izuku analyzed them all without slowing his pace. He checked the map on his phone. Class 1A. The elite of the elite. He found the door. It was massive, easily 20 feet tall, designed to accommodate gigantification quirks, Izuku noted. Or just to intimidate. He slid the door open. The noise hit him instantly. Remove your foot from that desk. A voice chopped the air like a blade. It is disrespectful to the UA alumni who crafted it. Ha! A familiar, gravelly voice retorted. Stop buzzing in my ear, Four Eyes. I'll put my feet where I want. Who are you anyway? Izuku sighed. Of course. Inside, Tenya Ida was gesturing robotically at Katsuki Bakugo, who was leaning back in his chair with his feet resting on the pristine wood, looking like a king on a throne of vandalism. Bakugo's eyes snapped to the door as it opened. His scowl deepened into a snarl. Deku. The room went quiet. Ida spun around. Ah. You. Ida marched toward Izuku. The curly-haired student. I am Tenya Ida from Semi-Private Academy. I heard you the first time, Izuku said, walking past him. I'm Midoriya. Nice to meet you, Ida. Now, if you'll excuse me, my seat is behind Kaken. Kaken? Ida blinked. Don't call me that here, you damn nerd. Bakugo slammed his hand on the desk. Smoke curled from his palm. You think just because you got lucky with the 0-pointer you can look down on me? Izuku stopped. He placed his bag on his desk and leaned down, bringing his face level with Bakugo's. The air between them shimmered with heat. Luck is a variable, Izuku said coldly. Power is a constant. I didn't get lucky, Bakugo. I got strong. Try to keep up. Bakugo's jaw unhinged with rage, but before he could detonate, a cheerful voice broke the tension. It's you! The plain-looking boy. Izuku straightened up. Ochako Uraraka was standing there, beaming. She looked refreshing, like a cool breeze in a furnace. Oh. Uraraka, Izuku nodded. You made it. Barely. She laughed nervously. I was so worried about the presentation. But then the letter came, and your score was amazing. You punched that giant robot like, POW. And then you were like, whoosh, She mimed a punch that was adorable but biomechanically terrible. It was effective, Izuku conceded. I wonder if the teacher is nice, Uraraka said, looking around. Is it All Might? Everyone says he's teaching this year. I hope not, Izuku muttered. If you're here to socialize, get out. The voice came from the floor. The class froze. Slowly, they looked down. Lying in the doorway, encased in a bright yellow sleeping bag like a metamorphic caterpillar, was a man. He had long, messy black hair, tired eyes, and stubble that looked 3 days old. He sipped a juice pouch with the enthusiasm of a man on death row. He unzipped the bag and stood up. He wore a ragged black jumpsuit and a gray scarf that defied gravity slightly. It took you 8 seconds to quiet down, the man said, checking a stopwatch. Time is a limited resource. You kids aren't rational enough. He walked to the podium, scratching his neck. I'm your homeroom teacher, Shota Aizawa. Put these on and meet me on the P grounds. He held up a blue gym uniform. Teacher? Uraraka whispered. But, he looks like he lives under a bridge. Izuku narrowed his eyes. He recognized the man. Not from the hero billboards, but from the underground hero forums he used to haunt. Eraserhead, Izuku thought. The erasure hero. He hates the media. He hates Flash. And he has the highest expulsion rate in UA history. Izuku grabbed a uniform. This is going to be interesting. The locker room. The boys' locker room was a chaos of changing bodies and bragging rights. Man, I'm pumped. A redhead with shark teeth, Kurishima said, flexing. I wonder what we're doing. Probably an orientation ceremony, right? I hope there are girls. A tiny boy with great balls on his head drooled. Izuku stripped off his shirt. The chatter stopped near him. Izuku Midoriya didn't just have muscles. He had armor. His torso was a roadmap of dense, corded fiber. His serratus anterior muscles were so defined they looked like gills. Faint, jagged white lines, scars from overdrive heat burns, traced up his arms and across his back. Whoa dude, Kirishima whistled. You are shredded. What kind of workout do you do? I lift trash, Izuku said, pulling on the blue tracksuit. It was tight. He hated tight clothes. They trap the heat. Trash? Kirishima blinked. Wait, you're the guy who smashed the 0-pointer, right? The one with the power-type quirk? Something like that, Izuku said. Bakugo slammed his locker shut in the corner. He didn't look at Izuku. He was staring at the wall, vibrating with a silent, terrifying intensity. The assessment. The P grounds were vast, a stretch of dirt and track under the open sky. The class gathered, looking confused. A quirk apprehension test? The class chorus echoed. What about the ceremony? Uraraka asked. And the guidance counselor meeting? If you want to be a hero, you don't have time for frilly ceremonies, Aizawa said, his back turned. UA is known for its freestyle educational traditions. That applies to the teachers as well. He turned to face them. His eyes were dark, baggy, and utterly devoid of warmth. Softball throw. Standing long jump. 50-meter dash. Endurance running. Grip strength. Upper body training. Seated toe touch. Sit-ups. You did these in middle school, right? Without quirks. He held up a digital device. The country is still stuck in the past, banning quirks and fitness tests. It's irrational. Bakugo looked up. You finished first in the practical exam. In middle school, what was your best result for the softball throw? 67 meters, Bakugo grunted. Try it with your quirk, Aizawa tossed him a ball. Do whatever you want. Just stay in the circle. Bakugo walked to the circle. He stretched his arms. He glared at the ball, then at Izuku. I'm going to show him. I'm going to show all of them. Dai! Bakugo threw the ball. As it left his fingertips, he detonated a massive explosion. Boom! The ball shot into the sky like a mortar shell, riding a trail of smoke. Die! Izuku murmured. A bit excessive. Aizawa held up the device. 705.2 meters. Whoa! The class erupted. 700 meters? That's insane. We can use our quirks? This is going to be fun. Awesome. Aizawa's expression darkened. The air temperature seemed to drop. Fun? He repeated. You have 3 years to become a hero. Will you have an attitude like that during a crisis? He smiled. It was a terrifying, jagged smile. All right. Whoever ranks last in total points will be judged to have no potential, and will be punished with immediate expulsion. The cheer died instantly. Expulsion? Uraraka cried. But it's the first day. That's not fair. Natural disasters aren't fair, Aizawa countered. Villain attacks aren't fair. If you want fair, go to a normal high school. Yui is about overturning the unfair. He looked directly at Izuku. Plus ultra. Give it everything you've got. Izuku met his gaze. He felt the challenge. Aizawa was testing them, yes. But he was specifically testing the heavy hitters. He wanted to see if they were just weapons or warriors. Fine, Izuku whispered. Let's set some records. Test 1, 50-meter dash. Ida and a girl with a frog quirk, Ajui, were up first. Ida clocked 3.04 seconds. Like a fish in water, Aizawa muttered. Or an engine on a track. Then, it was Izuku's turn. He was paired against Bakugo. They stood at the starting line. The tension was palpable. Don't hold back, Deku, Bakugo growled. I'll kill you if you do. Save your breath, Izuku replied. On your mark. Izuku bent low. He didn't use one for all. He didn't need the golden power for a sprint. He just needed the engine. Overdrive, 8% legs. Green lightning crackled around his calves. The muscles twitched, becoming hard as iron. Start. Boom. Bakugo propelled himself with explosions, flying backward. Izuku didn't fly. He ran, but his running was violent. Each step shattered the dirt track. He was a green blur of kinetic energy. He didn't need to maneuver. He just needed torque. 3.9 seconds. The robot announced for Izuku. 4.13 seconds. For Bakugo. Izuku skidded to a halt, dust billowing around him. He shook his legs out, venting the heat. Bakugo landed, staring at the time. He lost. By 0.2 seconds. You. Bakugo's hand smoked. You bastard, Torque, Izuku said, walking past him. Explosions give you thrust, but you lose time on the wind-up. My power is instant. Test 2, grip strength. Izuku took the dynamometer. He squeezed. He didn't even use the lightning this time. Just the passive density of his muscles. Crunch. The machine beeped, then cracked. 560 kilograms. Beside him, a large boy with multiple arms, Shoji, got 540 kilograms. You're a monster, dude, Shoji said, impressed. It's all in the forearms, Izuku muttered, tossing the broken device into the bin. Test 3, standing long jump. Izuku cleared the sandbox. He actually overshot it and landed on the grass on the other side. Aizawa watched from the sidelines, jotting notes. Midoriya Izuku. Quirk, overdrive/superpower. Physical stats are off the charts. He controls the output well. No wasted movement. High combat awareness. But, Aizawa frowned, there's something else. A hesitancy. He's holding back the main reserve. Why? Test 5, the ball throw. Uraraka stepped up. She touched the ball, floated it, and batted it away. It floated forever. Infinity. Infinity? The class gasped. That's cheating. Kaminari laughed. It's effective, Izuku said. Midoriya, Aizawa called out. You're up. Izuku walked to the circle. He picked up the ball. It felt light. Too light. He stood in the center. He looked at the field. I need a good score to maintain first place. Bakugo is close behind on points. Momo Yaoyorozu is consistent, one for all. He could feel it in his gut. The golden fire. It wanted to be let out. If I use 100%, I'll break my arm again. Recovery Girl isn't here to fix me instantly. I need to be smart. Use overdrive to reinforce the skeletal structure. Use 10% of OFA for the launch. Vent the heat through the fingers. Izuku wound up. Green lightning surged. The air crackled. The ground beneath his feet began to smoke. Smash! He threw. But as the ball left his hand, nothing happened. The lightning vanished. The strength evaporated. The ball flew about 46 meters, a decent throw for a fit human, but pathetic for him. Huh! Izuku blinked. He looked at his hand. The heat was gone. The connection was severed. He turned around. Aizawa stood there. His hair was floating. His scarf was levitating. And his eyes were glowing a piercing red. I erased your quirk, Aizawa said flatly. The class gasped. Erased? That's Eraserhead. The underground hero. Aizawa walked toward Izuku, stepping into his personal space. That entrance exam was definitely not rational enough, Aizawa said, his voice dripping with disdain. Even a kid like you was accepted. A kid like me? Izuku straightened up. He didn't back down. You have a powerful quirk, Aizawa said. But you can't control it fully, can you? I saw the reports from the exam. You shattered your arm to destroy the zero-pointer. You became a liability. I saved someone, Izuku argued, and then you were useless, Aizawa countered. If you break your bones every time you save someone, who saves you? You think you're brave? No. You're just reckless. You remind me of another hero, a certain loud, blonde buffoon who thinks punching solves everything. Izuku stiffened. The comparison stung more than the insult. I am nothing like him, Izuku hissed. Then prove it, Aizawa's eyes deactivated. His hair fell. I returned your quirk. You have one more throw. If you act like a toddler with a shotgun again, I will expel you right now. Aizawa walked back to the line. Izuku stood in the circle, holding the ball. His heart was pounding. Not from fear. From anger. He thinks I'm a glass cannon. He thinks I'm just a vessel for power I didn't earn. Izuku looked at the ball. I don't need a quirk to be dangerous. He remembered the beach. He remembered lifting the engine block. He remembered the years of martial arts, of biomechanics study. He activated overdrive. But he kept it internal. Deep in the marrow. No lightning. No flash. And then, he reached for the gold. Focus. Not the whole arm. Just the tip of the spear. He wound up. He used his hips. He whipped his arm forward like a trebuchet. At the very last microsecond, the point of release, he pushed one for all into his index finger. Go! Snap boom. The air exploded. A ring of dust blasted outward from the circle. The ball didn't just fly, it vanished, breaking the sound barrier instantly. Izuku didn't break his arm. His finger was bruised, purple and throbbing, smoke curling from the tip, but it wasn't shattered. He turned to Aizawa. He held up his smoking fist, his green eyes burning with defiance. I'm still standing, Sensei. Aizawa looked at the device. 709.6 meters. Aizawa's eyes widened slightly. A smirk, a genuine, creepy smirk, touched his lips. He beat Bakugo. Someone whispered. And he didn't break his arm. Uraraka cheered. Bakugo stood frozen. His brain was short-circuiting. 700 meters? With just a finger? And that power, the way the wind moved, it wasn't overdrive. It was something else. Something familiar. Something he had seen on TV 1,000 times. DKU, Bakugo snapped. Explosions erupted from his palms. He launched himself at Izuku. You lying bastard. Tell me how you did that. Izuku didn't flinch. He planted his feet, ready to catch the explosion. Cloth. Suddenly, a white capture tape wrapped around Bakugo, binding his arms to his torso. He fell face first into the dirt. Gah! What is this? Bakugo struggled. It's hard as steel, carbon fiber woven with a special metal alloy, Aizawa said, holding the other end of the tape. His hair was floating again. Geez, don't make me use my quirk so much. I have dry eye. He glared at Bakugo. Stand down. We're wasting time. Aizawa released him. Bakugo stood up, panting, staring at Izuku with pure hatred. Izuku looked back calmly. I told you, Kaken. I'm not the same pebble on the side of the road anymore. The results. The sun was setting. The tests were over. Aizawa projected the hologram. 1. Izuku Midoriya. 2. Momo Yaoyorozu. 3. Shoto Todoroki. 4. Katsuki Bakugo. 20. Minoru Mineta. Izuku looked at the top spot. He clenched his fist. Heir apparent. By the way, Aizawa said, zipping up his sleeping bag. The expulsion thing was a logical ruse. It was to draw out your maximum potential. Way out? the class screamed. It was a lie. Uraraka slumped. It was obvious, Momojayorosa said elegantly. A teacher wouldn't expel a student on the first day. Izuku looked at Aizawa. No. It wasn't a lie. He was serious. If I had broken my arm, he would have sent me home. Aizawa turned to leave. Curriculum sheets are in the classroom. Don't be late tomorrow. As Aizawa walked away, he turned a corner toward the main building. Standing there, hiding poorly behind a concrete pillar, was All Might. So, All Might whispered, looking like a giddy panda. You didn't expel him. Aizawa stopped. He didn't look at All Might. He has potential, Aizawa admitted. But he has a chip on his shoulder the size of a mountain. And that power. Aizawa glanced back at the field, where Izuku was walking away, alone. It's too big for him. It's overflowing. It reminds me of you, All Might. But where you are the sun, he feels more like a reactor on the verge of a meltdown. He will learn, All Might said, his voice defensive. He is strong. He's angry, Aizawa corrected. And anger burns fuel fast. Fix your relationship with him, whatever it is. Or he's going to burn out before he graduates. Aizawa walked away, leaving All Might standing in the shadows. The walk home. Izuku walked out of the school gates. His finger throbbed, but the pain kept him sharp. Midoriya! Wait up! He turned. Uraraka was running toward him, with Ida speed-walking behind her. Hey, Izuku said, softening his expression. You were amazing! Uraraka cheered. First place. And you flicked that ball like pow. Indeed, Ida adjusted his glasses. Although I disapprove of your confrontation with Mr. Aizawa, your results are undeniable. I misjudged you. Thanks, Izuku said. I'm Ochako Uraraka, she beamed. Let's walk to the station together. Tenya Ida, Izuku Midoriya, he replied. So, Uraraka tilted her head. Bakugo calls you Deku, right? Is that your nickname? It's an insult, Ida noted. From the kanji for useless. Oh. Uraraka covered her mouth. I'm sorry. But I kinda like it. It sounds like Dikaira. Like you can do it. Izuku stopped. Deku. Useless. Wooden doll. You can do it. He looked at Uraraka. She was smiling. It wasn't a hero smile. It was just a smile. Deku, Izuku whispered. He tested the word. He looked at the setting sun. I like it, Izuku said, a genuine blush touching his cheeks. Call me Deku. Wait, just like that? Ida asked, shocked by the lack of logic. Just like that, Izuku smirked. I'm going to change the meaning. It's not going to mean useless anymore. It's going to mean, the guy who doesn't give up. As they walked into the sunset, Izuku felt the heat in his bones settle into a comfortable warmth. The assessment was over. The aggression had been established. But for the first time in a long time, he felt like he wasn't just fighting a war. He was living a life. Watch me, Dad, Izuku thought. I'm just getting started.